Our last video ended by considering the ways in which both how audiences understand movie stories and the meanings that they interpret from those stories are connected to choices in film form. In other words, in how the movie's content is presented to the audience. This video delves deeper into the different ways in which filmmakers use elements of film form to communicate both symbolic and thematic meaning, as well as how audiences rely on cues in film form both to piece together story information and to figure out a movie's themes. As we are watching a movie story play out on screen, the images and sounds that are presented to us have both a literal meaning and a symbolic meaning. The literal meaning is what the authors of our textbook call referential meaning. Because this is a very confusing term, it is more helpful to think of referential meaning as just being literal meaning. It is our concrete understanding of what we see happening on screen. There is no interpretation involved. Instead, it is just us seeing what is happening and recognizing what we see. So, in other words, you can think of this type of meaning as being the same thing as plot summary. For example, this is the opening scene from 500 Days of Summer. In this scene, we see a man and a woman sitting next to each other on a park bench. They smile at each other, and we see the woman place her hand over the man's hand. That is the literal or referential meaning, a man and a woman sitting on a park bench holding hands. Every shot in every movie is going to have a literal meaning. Some shots may also have a symbolic meaning. This is a deeper meaning that goes beyond just what we see happening on screen. So, for example, if we are watching a romance movie where a couple is breaking up and it is raining as the breakup is taking place, the literal meaning of this scene is that a couple is breaking up in the middle of a rain shower. At the same time, though, the rain might also be interpreted to have an additional symbolic meaning that uses the weather to reflect the emotional state of the characters in terms of the sorrow and or the emotional upheaval that they are experiencing in that moment. In other cases, shots in movies can have both a literal meaning and a thematic meaning. Thematic meaning is symbolic meaning that is specifically connected to the movie's themes. So again, the larger ideas or meanings that the movie explores. Both symbolic meaning and thematic meaning are communicated through choices in film form. To return to our example from 500 Days of Summer, choices in how the content of this scene is presented to us as the audience draw our attention to particular details in the scene. So, the close-up shot of the man and the woman holding hands reveals an engagement ring on the woman's left hand. This detail in the costume design for the scene might lead us to infer that she is engaged. The staging of the scene, which includes their body language, their proximity to one another, the fact that they are holding hands, and the way that they look at each other, might further lead us to assume that the man she is with is the man that she is engaged to and intends to marry. This is an example of implicit meaning. Implicit meaning is symbolic or thematic meaning that is implied by choices in the movie's form, but that is never directly stated in the movie. Instead, the movie leaves it up to us to form our own interpretations about how what we are seeing fits into the movie's plot, as well as how it connects to the movie's themes. That same example from 500 Days of Summer is also an example of another type of symbolic and thematic meaning that we talked about during the first week of class, which is ideological meaning. The authors of your textbook use the term symptomatic meaning instead to refer to this kind of meaning, but ideological meaning is the term most commonly used, both in film studies and in other fields that study the relationship between the stories that we tell about ourselves and the world around us, and the things that we as a culture believe about ourselves and the world around us, such as sociology, anthropology, cultural studies, and media studies. And since ideology is a term that some of you may already be familiar with, for the purposes of this video, we will also use ideological meaning as the term for this kind of meaning. During the first week of class, we also talked about the way that studying movies can help us to understand the beliefs and values of the culture that we live in, because movies both reflect and help to shape those beliefs and values. Ideology is the term for those beliefs and values. And so in terms of movie symbolism and movie themes, ideological meanings are the meanings communicated in movies that are specifically connected to cultural beliefs and values, as well as certain types of cultural practices. Not all movie themes are tied to cultural beliefs, values, or practices, so not all movie themes are necessarily examples of ideological meaning. But it is very common for at least some of a movie's themes to include ideological meaning. To use our example from 500 Days of Summer, we only reach our interpretation about the possible romantic relationship between the man and the woman because we are familiar with the cultural practices around heterosexual marriage in the United States that are tied to the man in the relationship giving the woman in the relationship a ring, most often a diamond ring, as part of the ritual of proposing marriage. We are also familiar with the cultural practice of the woman in the relationship wearing the ring on the third finger of her left hand as a sign of her acceptance of that proposal. Likewise, we also recognize holding hands as a widely recognized and culturally accepted public display of affection that is tied to a lot of different kinds of love, including romantic love. In order to put all of those pieces together, though, and to come to our interpretation about the man and the woman being romantically involved with and engaged to marry one another, we need to be familiar with all of these cultural rituals and practices. If we were watching this movie in another country where the exchange of engagement rings is not how marriages are proposed or announced, then we would miss this meaning and the symbolism of the ring entirely. The last type of thematic meaning that can be communicated through a movie's form is explicit meaning. Explicit meaning is when a movie's themes are explicitly stated in the film, most often by being worked into either the dialogue or the voiceover narration. Explicit meaning can also sometimes involve working a statement of a movie's themes into aspects of the set design, as in this example where the movie poster in the background provides ironic commentary on the scene that is unfolding on screen, where the man sitting in front of that poster is being questioned by police in connection with a murder that he is, in fact, guilty of committing and then trying to cover up. Whether it is done through dialogue or set design, it is really important to stress here that explicit meaning is not obvious meaning or overt meaning. It is when a movie's themes are explicitly stated in the film. It is also equally important to stress that not every single line spoken in a movie or every single piece of writing shown on screen is an example of explicit meaning. Explicit meaning only comes into play when the dialogue is not just words that are being spoken that help to further the plot, but are also words that are a direct articulation of one of the movie's themes. It might be helpful, therefore, to think about explicit meaning as being the opposite of implicit meaning, where implicit meaning leaves it up to the audience to interpret the meaning that they are supposed to take away from what they see on screen. With explicit meaning, the movie tells us how to interpret what we are seeing. Let's look at that scene from 500 Days of Summer again with the sound this time, and let's watch it all the way through to the end.
This is a story of boy meets girl. The boy, Tom Hansen of Margate, New Jersey, grew up believing that he'd never truly be happy until the day he met the one. This belief stemmed from early exposure to sad British pop music and a total misreading of the movie The Graduate. The girl, Summer Finn of Shinnecock, Michigan, did not share this belief. Since the disintegration of her parents' marriage, she'd only loved two things. The first was her long dark hair. The second was how easily she could cut it off and feel nothing. Tom meets Summer on January 8th. He knows almost immediately she's who he's been searching for. This is a story of boy meets girl. But you should know up front, this is not a love story.
When the narrator tells us at the end of that scene, this is a story of boy meets girl, but this is not a love story, he is explicitly telling us how we are meant to interpret the movie story that we are about to see. This is an example of explicit meaning because it connects to several of the themes explored in the film that are related to the concepts of true love, soulmates, and romantic love that is fated or meant to be. This one scene communicates 4 different kinds of meaning: literal, implicit, explicit, and ideological, all at the same time. In all 4 cases, though, that meaning is communicated through choices in film form. This brings us back to the way in which movie content, movie form, and movie themes are interconnected. That is something that is true for all movies. We are going to be discussing this in more detail in class this week, and we will also have a chance to analyze how it works in practice when we get to our next movie screening and discussion.